Hello everybody, welcome along to Talking Horticulture, and we're out today on site again, back out and about, and weather is good today to get out and around, unlike the last day when it was a bit wet. So myself and Stephen are out today with Gerry, and Gerry looks after invasive species, and he's our go-to man now on the expertise of anything invasive species. So go and have a little look today at some Japanese knotweed and anything else, a couple of other things like Himalayan Balsam or maybe some hogweed that we might spot on our travels around the place. And we're currently here in the middle of a river, main river, standing right on a kind of a little island which is built up over time in the middle of it. And within that there's a number of species, invasive species, which have travelled downstream over time and have taken hold. And of course in the middle of it is our Japanese knotweed. So Gerry and Stephen, we're here looking at it.
How big of a problem is Japanese knotweed, Gerry?
It's a major problem. It's a major problem keeping it under control, and controlling it is what I do. I don't like to use the term eradicating it, because it's one of these plants that, you know, you'll say you got rid of it and it'll pop its head up in no time at all. It was brought into the country in the 1900s as an ornamental plant. It came from Japan. We know it from Japan. It came over to Holland, and there was an exhibition in Holland, and from there it was sent out all over Europe as an ornamental plant. It's a beautiful plant. It has a beautiful white flower. It's easily identifiable with the opposite leaves.
It's in flower now, isn't it?
It's in flower now, and you'll see that the flowers are coarse. They're coarse to touch. Even the leaves, they're not soft and delicate like other leaves. They're actually hard and almost
papery, like would you say? Yeah, they're very papery.
It's quite a thick leaf.
Hard and kind of thick, which you wouldn't, when you're looking at it, you would feel that it's going to be soft and succulent.
But if you look at the colour of the leaves also, the leaves are a slightly different green to every other green around.
Yeah, it's a richer kind of green to it, is it?
Absolutely.
Well, something has been nibbling on that leaf there.
Yeah, but
it's very, there's no real there's no critter here, we could say, insect or anything that
we have
no predator.
We have no predator here. In Japan and China, where it's native to, they have a psyllid over there, or a beetle, that will actually eat it and devour it.
And of course, that's one of the major problems of bringing non-native species into a country.
Absolutely.
Is that there isn't a native insect or animal which finds it tasty to nibble on.
I know in England the Kew are experimenting with psyllids over there, but they're afraid that if they release them into the wild, like the cane toads in Australia, they'll just take.
So it's a knock-on effect of that.
Absolutely knock-on effect.
So we're in the middle of this river here.
We're on an island, essentially, in between a river.
So we're actually at a weir. We might as well tell people
we're on the Liffey here.
We're actually
we're in a little island which is in the middle of it here, which has formed from silt over time. Now, when we say over time, we're not talking about in the past 10 years. No. We're looking at trees here. There's a tree here beside us growing on an alder, and you're looking at maybe 60 to 70 year old alder growing on it here. So that'll give you a time scale of this little formation of the island.
I've got photographs of this island going back to the early 20th century, and this island was here.
So we're going, if you have come down here now and you're going treating this knotweed which is here, you wouldn't be coming down doing a foliar spray on this, sure you wouldn't?
Anywhere beside the river I would inject. I would have to do a stem injection on it, and we have to be very precise where we stem inject and how much we use in the stem injection. Anywhere where we're away from a water course, we would use a foliar spray.
And the same chemical, glyphosate?
Yeah, now the difference between the glyphosate, we will use a neat glyphosate in the injections. which gives us a much better result. So we would put, well, I might as well say it, we would put 20 mils, right? Per stem. So we would inject on the second stem up, not at the bottom of the stem, the bottom of the node, but at the top of the node, because we don't want anything to leach out.
So you're injecting just about, what, about 12 inches off the ground perhaps?
Yeah, about 12 inches.
And you're directly 20 mils into each stem.
Into each stem.
But that's fine for your one-off, your little clump.
Yes.
Like if you're looking at a massive, if we're looking at an area that is 20, 30, 50 square meters.
I actually did an area up in Bornabrena, 2,000 square meters.
How did you get on top of that?
I stem injected 50% of it. So 1,000 square meters was stem injected and the rest was foliar. So the minute I moved away from the river, I was about 5 to 6 meters away from the river, I sprayed. And I always made sure that I sprayed with the wind direction to me back away from the river.
But you're talking like in a square meter you could you have 20 or 30 stems in a square meter easy?
You could have, in a square meter you could have up to 60, 70 stems.
Wow.
Knotweed is clump forming, and it's a rhizome. We have to remember it's a rhizome, and she will move out gradually. She will constantly move out gradually, and she will build up.
So for the likes of down here then, where we are on the river, for this clump that we're at here, which it was, and much of it has died off now.
Where we're standing, there was about 170 square meters. I think we're down to probably, we've a little bit more over there. I think if we're down to maybe 10, 15 square meters.
This would have moved along the river from somewhere further upstream.
Yeah, we have. I know that it's up further because I've walked the banks way up above the weir.
Yeah.
Out up to Castleton.
Yeah.
And there's knotweed along the banks of Castleton. Because knotweed, every bit of it will reproduce. It's asexual. So if you break a leaf off and it hits the ground and it takes root in the ground, that will grow as a clump. And that will grow next year. You will find it will grow 2 meters up and half a meter out. And that's the nature of the beast. Every bit of it will reproduce.
So I'm based over Maynooth, and I'm looking at one of the tributaries of the Liffey, which is I think is Lyrene.
Yes.
And I'm looking at a clump of knotweed. So are you saying if I go up there, break a little bit off, that could come all the way down to here
potentially
and start a clump and spread, and that's how it happens. That's
potentially that's how it lodges. Yeah, that's exactly how it can happen.
Because we were saying just before we came on about we thought, and now having talked to Gerry now, we realised that we were wrong in saying that the seeds are a problem with Japanese knotweed.
We don't have the male, if I remember rightly. We have the female. If we had the male plant, then we would be in trouble. Seeds would be viable, but that's not to say that asexually that the flowers can reproduce if they touch soil.
So for sites that are not near a river, is it just where the likes of a hedge cutter might come along and cut it, or it gets travelled in a load of soil in a truck, that sort of thing?
Or that can easily happen. Or someone gets a gardener,
and it comes in a green waste, or it comes
and that's how it's spread. An awful lot of it that are on roadways is either spread by people dumping it on the roadways. A hedge trimmer will come along and then
drag it with it.
Yeah.
So we just came from one of the industrial estates over in Luca, and you were showing us an area at the side of a road between public land and private land.
Yeah.
And Japanese knotweed's a problem.
Yeah.
And you've been controlling it on your side.
Yeah.
but it's not being as controlled to the same extent on the other side, and it's coming through.
It's starting to come through. What they did was that where we were, it was a winding country road, and I'd say way back when someone dumped green waste there, and they had the knotweed in. The knotweed took over. We needed to widen the road, and in order for us to widen the road, we had to remove the knotweed. So the knotweed, they dug it out. It was bonded. It was all done under biosecurity terms. Everything was washed down and made sure that it was clean, that nothing was spread from it. When they backfilled it, they put in a barrier, a root barrier, and they backfilled it. Now that happened a couple of years ago. Now the knotweed is starting to move out again from the private site. So what happens is this: I will come along, and because it's come out one side of the railings, I will then spray that in order to retard it coming out any further, and to prevent the spread of it inadvertently by kids breaking
So
it
people
off.
break it off, or
Yeah.
people couldn't.
Yeah.
So like, just to take a step back to what you said, when they widened the road, somebody came in and had to dig up all the soil, screen it, take out all the thing. It was treated like toxic waste almost.
It has to be treated like a toxic waste.
Yeah.
Because any bit of that, if it remains in soil, that can regrow.
Regrow.
Some of it, I know of one guy who under license has it in a tub, so he can show people what the roots look like. And after 5 years, it was starting to grow again.
So
that's
it's the vigor of it is something else.
Absolutely. That rhizome, all it wants to do is grow. All that energy is in there. All it wants to do is come up.
And we were talking about the root structure of this plant and how vigorous it is, and we're talking about foliar application, and you were saying about where this particular site over in the industrial estate, it was on an old hedge line where there was probably a ditch where there was water. Up to 5 meters the roots can go down.
They can go down that deep. If they're searching for water, they will go down to that depth. Now when they're removing, if they're digging out anything like that, they have to go down to below the roots, that root. So if, let's say that root system goes down to the 5 meter mark, they have to go down a further 2 meters below that root.
Wow.
To make sure that there's nothing there. And if they're burying it on site, they the waste has to be bundled in roots.
So it has to be
barrier. Yeah.
So they have to essentially dig a hole, cap it with root barrier, and then top fill it with clean stuff, is it?
Clean, and it has to be buried. It has to be 5 meters
from the top, because it potentially could.
So it's as if it's toxic waste.
Really. Oh, absolutely.
So it would make that depth with the root system would make different sites a challenge, because if you take the site where we're standing, it's obviously going to be wetter, so they're not going to be as deep. So if I was to dig it up here, it would be easier than where you just had mentioned.
Yeah. Some guys will actually charge up to 95 to 100 euros per metre.
So it's an expensive plant to look after.
Oh, absolutely.
And we made the mistake earlier on in saying, I asked Gerry, how do you eradicate Japanese knotweed? You can't.
I don't use the term eradicate. If you get it young, and I mean when it's only starting to stick its head up out of the ground, and you hit it vigorously, you will control it. You will control it by about 99%. But it's that 1% that you're always afraid is going to come back up and bite you.
So if you had this grown in your private garden at home,
I had.
What would you suggest to somebody to do? Would you suggest that they should seek a professional, or to go at it themselves?
Well, look, going for a professional is expensive. It's an expensive option. They can charge you for €1,000.
But they would need to know that someone would need to be sure of their identification of it.
So what I would say is contact your local council, someone will come out and will identify it.
For you.
And if it is knotweed, they will tell you what you can do and how you can
So don't just go out and start buying chemical.
No.
Because you think you have it in your garden
No.
and just start spraying things.
I'm a professional herbicide application.
You've gone back to study this particularly about how you treat these, how you you stem inject, and it's not as straightforward as putting the knapsack on your back and going. Like there's a bit more to it. Like
there's not. You just don't do it willy-nilly. No.
But you have been tracking this around the country, I suppose, for how many? For the last.
I had it given to me as a present many years ago, 20 odd years ago.
A good friend, obviously.
Yeah. Someone who was very fond of me, and it was. I think it was described as Japonica cuspidata, or maybe I've got that wrong. But anyway, it was the wrong title was given to it. So we all thought it was fine. So yeah, and when I keyed it out years later, I said, oh no, that's Japanese. Wait, it took me 5 years.
Get rid of it.
5 years, treating it twice a year to get rid of it.
Wow.
And it hasn't come back in the last, touch wood.
Wow.
I grow nothing on that site. I grow absolutely nothing on that site. I kept it as barren as I can keep it.
To make sure that it's not going to come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just to look at a couple of other things when we're here, we're also on the riverbank. We have Himalayan Balsam here.
Yes.
Which is also in flower.
It's in flower. It's
in
a
flower,
pure
it's lovely
white
flower.
and pink flower. The flower head looks like Antirrhinum, snapdragons.
It's almost like a pea
Yes.
flower almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful plant.
Again, a woody stem, like kind of
It's
like
actually-
the knotweed.
It looks like a woody stem,
Yeah.
but it's actually like knotweed. It's a hollow stem.
So it pulled up there.
So you
quite
pulled
easy
up, yeah,
for you, Gerry.
you literally pulled up.
Absolutely.
Just pulled up there.
The
very,
roots,
very
just for
easy.
the listeners, the roots are not down probably three inches into the
Very
ground.
little white fibrous type roots.
But
you
this
know.
this doesn't spread by rhizomes.
This spreads by projecting seeds.
So
when
they're
you
like a party popper.
So Gerry asked us to touch one of the seeds when we came in here, and they essentially, literally, I'm popping one now, and they pop out.
Yeah.
About 6 seeds popped out of the from a very gentle touch, to be honest.
each plant has about between 6 and 800 seeds.
Am I right in saying now, in the hot weather, like a pea, like your sweet pea at home, when they dry out, they will almost explode?
Oh,
And
the breeze. Once there's any form of a breeze, they will pop.
And they pop, and like even from a slight touch, when they're not really ripe at this stage, they're popping out, and they're dispersing very easy.
So very easy.
Again, this is an invasive,
This again will clog up water courses.
but it's not. Would it be on the same scale? It's not. It wouldn't be ranked on the same scale.
No,
would
it's
it?
not. It's not ranked, but it can help with cause flooding.
Right.
It can break down banks. It can cause silt to move along.
Right.
You know.
So it's again we're looking around this here, and there's quite a good bit of it. I can see it.
It's not as clumpy. It's more you can sporadic.
Yeah,
You can,
but I can see a good bit of it around me here where I'm standing.
I pulled about 100 meters of this a couple of weeks back.
So pulling it by hand is the way, like a ragwort.
Yeah, exactly. If you get this, and the best way is to get this before it flowers, before it goes into seed. You'll find it's a hexagonal stem. It's also a hollow stem, as you can see there. It's got adventitious roots, and it can root from the first node and the second node. If it lays down.
Would you stem inject?
No. Pull
So
all
no
the
point.
time. There's no point.
So
Pull them and bag them and get them away.
and again, treat them like toxic waste, is it?
Yeah.
Incineration
well,
or
actually, they can go to landfill.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they will compost.
They will compost. Yeah. But once we get them
Before it's gone to seed.
we we can really, if we did it right, a couple of years, we could nearly eradicate it.
Would that be a native?
No, again, that Himalayan, it's impatient grandiflora.
It's introduced.
It's introduced. That's the funny thing was this: the seeds for that were posted to Kew Gardens.
Right.
And then they,
from there.
and then
the reason I asked, you see
Balsam,
here
yeah.
something where something is feasting on this quite well.
yeah.
So it's obviously compared to the
Oh,
knotweed.
yeah.
It's finding something here.
You will find beekeepers love this.
Yeah.
Bees
would love that now.
Absolutely
If you
love
look into the flower there, you can see.
But there's no issue really with our pollinators interacting with these invasives. Like,
No. Well, they can. It's actually. It can be. If they go for these non-native plants, it might just have a knock-on effect on our crop plants.
so you're talking about these are more favourable. These might be a sweeter nectar, pardon
Yes.
the pun,
Yeah.
and they mightn't.
Target these more.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that. So we have to look after what's native to us.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know.
Ooh, we need a lot of men to get this under control. Like, I presume this stand where we're looking at the Himalayan Balsam, this is all the way along the Liffey, is it?
It's pretty much all the way along the. Now there's a knock-on effect. If you take it that where we're standing, we've got South Dublin County Council one side of us, we've got Fingal County Council one side of us. Downstream of us, we've got Dublin City Council, and we've got Kildare County Council.
Yeah.
So realistically, there should be a plan devised that whoever is in the furthest reaches of the water system starts up there, and we move on down.
And is there any joined up thinking?
Yes.
There's plans in place, is there?
There is plans in place.
And you gave us a document there just before we came on air there about and it had a logging feature where you can track these things and you can pinpoint exactly via GPS. That's something that you do.
That is something that I do now. I do it on a much more precise basis.
Do you think there should be something that each local authority can log into and add all of their stuff to it so that it can be seen?
That would be the logical thing. I think they're in the process of doing that.
Because recently I was in holidays in Kerry and I seen a huge amount of knotweed down there.
Yeah.
Much more than I'd come across.
We can always improve on systems. Systems are there to be improved in, you know.
But this shouldn't be like, we're in Dublin now, and I always say the further you get away from Dublin, the county councils get poorer and poorer. Their resources aren't as much. This should be almost from the top down, a governmental sort of.
I know down in Wexford they have Himalayan Balsam bashing weekends where they actually take the Himalayans, and that's locals.
So that's people come out, you get a cup of tea, and you go pull the bag or whatever.
That's exactly it. So that type of effort. There's an awful lot of people who will do that.
Yeah.
You know.
But Himalayan Balsam is easy to control, and that's it.
It's absolutely.
You wouldn't be doing that with Japanese knotweed people.
And the same with other species, invasive species. No, you wouldn't. You know?
Yeah, like we're just looking back at the Japanese knotweed stand where Gerry's kind of been managing it, and attesting to we've nothing to discuss because it's under control. It's few little bits popping up here. So the likes of, we're in a completely barren area, I suppose, and we're looking at this tiny little bit that's popping up out of the soil. Is that?
That's knotweed, yeah.
So what is this going to be treated then?
This will get its second treatment now at the end of this month.
So we're looking at this one little plant that is one stem and two leaves coming out of an area. If you left that, how vigorous is that going to spread? Like, is that going to take off?
No, because it's been treated already.
That's been treated already.
That's already.
But if that was
a fresh leaf, that hadn't been treated, and we rubbed that into the ground, yes, that would take over. That would take over. Yeah.
So you can see the edge of that there. It's kind of a burnt.
It is burnt, yeah.
So that'll be from where it had received.
That would be, and as you can see, it's the leaf itself. It's mottled.
Yeah, yes. It's not the healthiest looking thing.
No, it's not.
So it's weakened. We know.
Absolutely, and that's what we do. So we keep treatment till we eventually it decides to give up.
Can I ask you something about a more controversial way of treating them, more holistic ways? Like a lot of people would be saying about putting down a barrier, like a thick carpet over them, eradicating the light, or I've seen the video of people electrocuting them, like blowing them up from the inside out.
Yeah.
Like, are any of these more, I don't want environmentally friendly methods? Are you completely at nothing doing that?
The knotweed, if you cover it, will look for light. It will search. It will travel.
It will find the edges.
Yeah, it will find the weak spots.
Yeah.
Where there's light, and it will come up. I've heard of them using electrodes. I don't know how successful they are. I don't think they will burn. I don't think they get down to burn the rise enough. You know, and I would fear that.
Yeah.
You know.
So yeah. So at the moment, the most easiest way is chemical.
It is chemical.
It's the only way.
Well, unless they come up with safe use of a predator, that's the only way I can see going forward.
So we talked about the site over in Lucan as well, where your man came in, dug out the soil, he put it through a screener, he took out all the roots, all the leaves, everything, sorted it out, put it underground. Like, you're talking massive money. Like, not everyone's going to be able to afford to maintain it.
No, and this is the thing. It can be anywhere from 100,000 up to 1.25 million.
So there's people going to make a lot of money out of this.
Some will.
And it's going to cost a lot more to other people.
Well, the other thing is this: they have to be accredited. They have to know what they're doing.
So do you think that it's not as big an issue as is realised just yet? Like, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger going forward?
Oh, it is an issue. It is an issue.
But is it being highlighted?
Is it highlighted, like? Do you think that it's going to get worse as we go on?
No, I can't really answer that one.
Because I don't think the general public
I don't think
know
it's been
enough.
highlighted enough.
Maybe, yeah, well...
Like,
yeah.
we're in the industry and we know about it, but we made an analogy of Mary who's walking down the side of the road and sees a lovely flower and plant, and she goes and puts it in her garden.
I suppose in those terms. I know from my point of view, we're putting an education video up.
Putting together, yeah. Excellent,
yeah, for all the invasives that we have.
Brilliant, yeah.
And that'll be on the council website.
So if the local authorities promoted that type of thing a little bit more,
yes,
it might get people a little bit more aware of how to identify it and what to do, as we were saying a minute ago, to go to their local authority. And
don't be afraid to go and say, I think I have knotweed. I've had people come and say, I think I have knotweed, and I've gone out and I've allayed their fears.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. It's
education and finding the right person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, and coming up with solutions for them.
It's brilliant. Yeah. So I think that kind of sums up Japanese knotweed today. Gerry, absolute pleasure talking to you, and I think we'll be out again chatting with other invasives, and because you're a wealth of knowledge. So
it's good to be out on site as well, you know, and get out and around and actually put our hands onto these things and see them, and hopefully from what we're being able to explain to you over the airwaves, that it will give you a kind of a picture of what we're seeing, and might get you out and about having a look at things as well.
Thanks guys, we'll chat to you next week.
Thank you.